Today, I'm going to interview Mrs. Archana Garodia Gupta. She has a very versatile personality. She's an author, a quizzer, and an entrepreneur all at the same time. She has authored bestsellers like The History of India for Children and The Women Who Ruled India. She was the president of the Vicky Ladies organization in 2015 and 16. She has also won the Champion of Champions title from BBC Mastermind India in 2002. Mrs. Archana also owns Touchstone Gems and Jewelry. She is also an expert on the expert panel in the famous reality show Kaun Banega Crorepati. Ma'am, it's so wonderful having you here. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be Shreya.
So, ma'am, to start with, could you please tell us something about your childhood and your education?
So, Shreya, I was born in Calcutta and I was there till the age of 5, which was good because though I'm a Marwadi, I picked up Bengali in Calcutta. So that has always been a great joy to me, especially Rabindra Sangeet and music and all the Satyajit Ray movies and all which become accessible because I have Bengali. And then we shifted to Delhi. So I have more or less, I call myself a Delhi wala. I've been here since the age of 5.
Oh.
And I went to modern school Vasant Vihar. Earlier I was in Humayun Road and then Vasant Vihar was established. And I really enjoyed my school years. Then after that I did economics in LSR, again a Delhi institution. And then I did my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. So I was away for 2 years in Ahmedabad.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So you're an author, entrepreneur, quizzer, all at the same time. So what got you interested in all of these fields?
Well, a lot of it, of course, comes out of reading. I always used to love reading as a child, and I used to, my father was very fond of reading. Our house was always full of books. My birthday presents always used to be books. Everybody knew. So all my birthday presents were invariably books. And I think the age of 7 or 8 onwards, I've been reading more or less at least one book a day all my life, even now, even through through my work, all of that. It's like breathing for me. If there are periods when I cannot read, it becomes very difficult for me. In a week or so, I become very cranky. So reading is very much a part of my life, which then led to quizzing. Because if you read a lot, then something sticks. Not everything you read you remember, but many of the things remain. And then I started quizzing in school days. And after that, so school I was not that good, but college I took up quizzing very seriously. So quizzing is still, I don't formally quiz very much now, but I'm still quizzing. I take part in online quizzes. I went for the European Quizzing Championship to Estonia. I remember a friend of mine was making a lot of fun that you're going to Estonia for a quiz. That takes some doing. So quizzing has been very much a part of, and the writing came out of it because somebody who is so immersed in books, he always wanted to write. And then I used to be editor of the school magazine, so I would write articles on retail, I would write articles on women's issues, but my love was always history. So if you see my reading, a lot of my reading is to do with history. And if I have to research something, if I have to write something, I think the researching is the most fun part. To write some 2,000 words, I'm quite capable of reading 20 books, just because I enjoy reading the book. It's not a chore. So the writing has also come out of it.
All right. So you've published bestsellers like The History of India for Children and The Women Who Ruled India. So from where did you get the inspiration to write such books? And how was the experience writing this?
So these have been a very incredible experience. The History of India for Children, I've co-written it with my younger sister Shruti, who is
Wow.
16 years younger than me.
Oh.
So, yeah. But we're both very fond of reading. She was working in London, I was in India, and we co-wrote this book by discussing and all that. I think for this book might be something for which I've worked maybe the hardest. I minimum must have read 500 books to write this. And not only that, but all my years of reading, all the anecdotes, all the little stories, all the literature. So, we didn't want to just, if one just had to write a simple history of India for children, you can pick up an adult book. You can pick up an
Yes.
adult book and then just write a simpler version of it, right? There are many histories
Yes.
of India available for adults.
Yes.
But we wanted it to be a book people wanted to read and not just, about learning about history, but something fun and enjoyable. So we put in a lot of little tidbits and anecdotes and bits of information which are simply not there in other books, and then
Yes.
we've tried to talk about lifestyles. It's not just a list of kings. We've tried to talk about how people lived, what makeup they used, what food they ate, what about their clothes, what did they do for games and sports.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then we've tried to give everywhere uh, some excerpt from contemporary literature. So suppose, you're writing about the Gupta period, then an excerpt from Bhartrihari, a little story of from Kalidas or Hitopdesh, so that you
Yes.
also get a flavor of what people used to read and what they enjoyed and all. And then another focus we have in our book is that we have connected what was happening in India with what was happening in the world. So at every period, we've talked about what was happening in the rest of the world, and we've talked about people from India who went there, people from abroad who came here. So to connect us, to show that, we were not isolated, we were always part of a global thing. And we've tried to give quotes by people about in that period. So it was really a labor of love. It took us 4 years to write it.
Okay.
And then uh, we were told that, okay, you can write about 150,000 words, but they said, write as much as you like and we'll cut it, our publishers. So eventually we submitted 5 lakh words.
Oh.
And then it took us 2 years to cut it down to 125,000 words. So
Wow.
actually what you see in these 2 volumes is only 1/4 of what we've written. 3/4 had to be discarded because otherwise it was getting too thick, the book.
My
So
God, that would be so
yeah, can
wonderful
you
if we
imagine?
literally, yes, we would literally get to read 5 lakh word. That would get so interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, we were literally crying tears of blood, having to remove, we cannot leave this out, we cannot leave this out, and then you had to do something.
Actually.
So we did that.
So, yeah. So, you're a regular expert on the reality show Kaun Banega Crorepati. So, what is it like to be on the panel of experts in that show, and how was the experience there?
So it's a wonderful experience, I have earlier Mastermind was also made by the same producers. So because I was the winner of BBC Mastermind, they invited me to be an expert on the show. And it's lovely because, like last 2 years, I was there for about 15, 16 episodes each time. And this year I've already shot for 3 episodes for this season. But lovely, and it's so lovely interacting with Mr. Bachchan and the stories. He's very charming and it makes you feel very good. And the contestants, they come from such diverse backgrounds. They've been through so many difficulties, but they're there, they're smiling, they're competing. And that itself is also an experience, Otherwise, we tend to be very isolated in our own little lives, and you just realize there is so much going on and people face so many challenges and how they overcome them.
Yes, that happens. That really happens, and we come to know it so much, and then we realize that the struggles we have is quite like nothing in front of their struggles.
Yes, yes, yes.
So back in 2015-16, were the president of the Picky Ladies organization. So please tell us a little about that organization and what is it like to be a part of such an organization and your experience there.
So, besides my one passion of reading, something else I spent many, many years at is trying to create programs for economic empowerment of women, for working for women, and how to,
Okay.
create businesses for them, how to facilitate their lives, how to create employment and skilling for women. So I have been part of Ficky Ladies organization since I left college, since 1989
Oh
or
wow.
1990. And it is the oldest and largest chamber of women entrepreneurs in the country. And currently, there are about 16, 17 chapters all across the country. And, I think nearly 10,000 members, women
Okay.
entrepreneurs. So I was part of the organization, then I was part of the governing body for many years. And then I became president in 2015, which is quite a big deal. So part of it, of course, there were many international delegations. Uh, we interact with women entrepreneurs from across the world, and we started many skilling programs for women entrepreneurs, mentorship programs for women entrepreneurs, and also we gave a lot of policy recommendations. So, part of it was going around meeting the major ministers in, say, the center, or going and meeting chief ministers in various states and giving them a list of points which we would like, the laws which we would like them to enact or support
Mhm.
programs for women entrepreneurs. And
Mhm.
again, it was a tremendous experience, interacting with so many. That was again one of the most taxing and hardworking year of my life, because you
Okay.
got up and you started working, and you were not able to get enough sleep by the
Oh,
time yeah, it was a tremendous year. But
that's really great, ma'am. That's wonderful. And you're so multi-talented, ma'am. And also, you're an entrepreneur and you have your very own jewelry store, Touchstone. So please tell us the story behind that store.
so, I'm from a business family, and after doing my MBA, I joined my father's business. He had a spinning unit where
Mhm.
we used to export yarn and textiles. And then um, after I got married with my husband, we set up a imitation jewelry manufacturing unit. At the time we set it up, this imitation jewelry was not sold in India, more or less. There was hardly anything available.
Okay.
Indians always, you can't imagine it because this is before you were born, but you didn't get, people only wore real jewelry, and they didn't have so much choice and all. And because we traveled abroad and all, so we saw that abroad people mostly wore imitation jewelry, and that was the norm. When we looked at the market, we saw about 93% of the jewelry worn was imitation jewelry. We said this is something that we can do in India. Of course, we'll have to do Indian
Okay.
style designs more than Western
Yes.
designs. So we were actually the first brand to do Indian style imitation
Oh
jewelry
wow.
about
That's
25 years
wonderful.
ago. We started, and then I remember, we were going and talking to all the department stores that they should stock up products and all that. And I had to do so much concept selling where they would say, you mean somebody that is artificial jewelry in a wedding? Not possible. And, we had to say, just start and you'll see the response. And so it was today. I mean, there's so many people making imitation jewelry. There is so many brands. Every shop has it. Every online portal has it. And I think the industry size has become about 20,000 to 30,000 crores, right from zero when we
That's
had
too much.
started. And this is not our turnover, but the size of the total market. And of course, we were one of the first people to start selling online also. So we had retail outlets in all the department stores, but then we started selling online, and now we find that is very attractive. So we are selling online in India, and we are selling online I mean, are on various portals stocking our goods in warehouses across the world. And we are, I think we can service about 100 countries,
Wow, that's great.
within
Wow.
24, 48 hours, and all made by Indian artisans. We really believe in supporting Indian artisans. So some of it is made in a factory, but a lot of it is made in villages. So the
Wow,
same
that's
good products which are made by women and other artisans in the villages are now available as it is, across the world. And, it's very interesting also because, you're young, how we can work. So uh, in all these countries, we have to work in different languages, right? You'll get customer inquiries in different languages and all that.
mhm.
So the people who handle these queries really don't speak any other language except Hindi and English, but they are happily corresponding with them in Japanese and Portuguese, and just using translation programs like Deep Blue and even Google
Okay.
Translate. And it's really fun because you just see the young people like you, and suddenly you have to correspond with people in 10 languages, and you just do it.
That's a really great concept, ma'am. I really enjoyed listening about this. So everybody faces some challenges in their life, and uh, how? So you must also have faced a lot of challenges, and how did you overcome them?
See, as you said, everybody faces challenges. So there are all kinds of challenges. There are business challenges, there are personal health challenges, there may be
Mhm.
emotional issues. And I found that, like, for example, after demonetization, our business had suffered a lot. And even during COVID times, right? Because obviously, people, if they're not interacting, they're not going to be wearing jewelry. They're not going
Mhm.
to be buying new jewelry if they don't have anywhere to go to wear it. So these things
Yes.
affected our market. And I think the way to face a challenge is that, first of all, to realize there's always a way out, there's always a path, and to not give up acting. The second is to try and, figure out ways of solving that problem, or at least
Mhm.
reducing the impact of it on you. And the third is then you start taking some steps, whatever. Uh, and I think the most important thing is that you should not give up, and you should not get emotionally upset, because the problem is there, but getting emotionally upset is not going to solve it. So you
Yes.
just have to put, as I sometimes I say, put one step after the other and keep moving. Don't uh, give up. And there's always, just remember that there's always a solution. You just have to find it.
Wonderful. Really good, ma'am. I'm really inspired by it today. So, what do you think is the best part about your job?
Best
Uh,
part about my job.
yeah, like, whatever you do, what's the best part about it?
Oh, I think in my business, it's the creativity, both in terms of, the jewelry one creates and the new marketing and other methods and techniques and even the systems. I enjoy doing the creativity, I think, even more than I would enjoy earning the money or, you know,
Yes.
uh, having
Okay.
things. So just some coming up with something new. And the best part about my job as a writer, as I said, it's reading. I just love
Yes.
reading new stuff, discovering new things. Still, and I
Okay.
think I really must have a passion for history, because after spending so many years reading so much history, and it's sort of now become part of my work description instead of a hobby. Even now, when I go to pick up a new book for leisure reading, quite often it's in history. So I really must love it.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful, ma'am. And what is the most important thing you've learned from whatever you're doing right now?
Hmm. I think the most important thing is, one, you need to have discipline, and you need to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you have to do it. You have to set yourself a time and do it. But more than that, it's very important to enjoy what you're doing and to always look for new ways to do it, so that
Okay.
there's always something you're creating something, you're adding something to the whole sum of knowledge in the world, That is very important to me.
Okay. And who was your role model, ma'am?
That is quite a difficult question because, of course, um, when I was at home, so I would see my mother and father, they had very different skills. But as you grow older, you realize how much you have picked up from them and how much you're actually, so many habits and characteristics and traits which one has picked up. My father was always very intellectually curious, and he read a lot, and he would attend, growing up, any kind of show came to town, we would go and attend it. They would go for talks, we'd go for music concerts. And there was never this thought that this is not interesting for a child, or, why should we take a 10-year-old to see a classical music concert? So we just went for these things. And I think that, of course, changes you and, takes you in a particular direction. And then I think what my mother did, though she herself, though she went for these, but she used to really believe in freedom for the child. And so she never had this concept, that she never tried to say, okay, you're a girl. And you must remember, all this is, maybe 40 years ago we are talking about. Things were different 40, 45 years ago. So many houses you would see the girls, you have to spend so much time in the kitchen, you have to learn how to do this embroidery, you should, spend your time, you should dress this way, you should look this way, this is what you should do with your time. So we had none of that. I think all that was required from us is that we did reasonably well in school, though she didn't supervise us, and that we were polite and well behaved. Beyond that, our time was our own. So if I wanted to spend all my time reading or something, she was fine with it. It's only relatives who would get excited, "Aankh kharab ho jayegi," yeah. Whatever people say, why are you wasting your time? Why don't you do something else? So
Yes.
we never had any of that. We had just total freedom without comments to follow whatever we liked. If somebody, we have 5 sisters. So everybody didn't have the same taste. Somebody wanted to do sports, somebody wanted to spend more time with their friends, but whatever they wanted to do was fine. And I think that helped us grow in so many ways, because we didn't get trapped with this concept of that, this is a role you have to play and this is who you have to be. We could choose that, and we were free to choose that.
Wow, that's wonderful. Wonderful, ma'am. And do you have any piece of advice for anyone who just like you wants to become an author, a quizzer, or an entrepreneur?
I have one piece of advice, that don't ever think you're not good enough. Don't ever think you're not good enough. It's very important. You just start. Just start.
Okay.
And if you're not doing okay, if if the output and you get rejected and all, look at it. Don't give up. Start again. Being an entrepreneur, being a writer, a lot of it is about failure and rejection.
Definitely.
So it's all right. You just have to, sort of dust yourself off and keep going. And you just have to be, you can't be scared of failure, and you can't be scared of looking ridiculous. It's no big deal, fail, start again. If you think you're looking ridiculous, big deal. It's just, the most important thing is to just do it and not bother about what you think other people are going to think.
Okay, wonderful. You inspired me a lot today. So from tomorrow onwards, probably I'll be more productive after listening to you. It was really interesting, ma'am. We learned a lot today, and it was so amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
It was a pleasure, Shreya. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you so much, ma'am.